Everybody, I'm back. Thank you very much to Nikhil for coming all the way from London to join us at Hong Kong FinTech Week. How about that, huh? And thank you to Neil for providing the interrogation of him. You know, we are bringing to the stage now two giants in the world of payments. And they are the ones that are working on taking the creaky and slow world of cross-border payments, and they are building a future of fast and secure international money transfers. They're taking time out of that important work. We've got one from the East, one from the West, coming to join us today. From the West, we have Surendra Chaplot, who is the global head of product for Wise. And from the East, a little bit closer to home, we have Forrest Lin, who is a corporate vice president at Tencent and the head of Tencent Financial Technology. And their discussion today is going to be guided, it is going to be moderated by Bénédicte, Nolens, who is the head of the BIS, the Bank of International Center Innovation Hub, Hong Kong Center. And she is no stranger to FinTech Week. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Surendra, Forrest, and Bénédicte to the stage. Here they come.
Great. Let's kick off the discussion. I'm obviously very pleased to be here with these two giants, as just described, and leaders in private sector innovation in cross-border payments. So maybe we can kick it off with you, Forrest, and if you can give a quick intro to the Tencent vision and where you stand on your roadmap, and let's say how far you've gone in terms of cross-border payments.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Tencent is an internet company. You know, we have a lot of businesses, social network, games, fintech, etc. So for Tencent FinTech, you know, our vision is financial technology for good for everyone. So this is really our vision. We want to make the inclusive finance as much as possible. And in terms of global payment, we actually have three different businesses. One is for Chinese travelers going abroad to pay for the merchants using Weixin Pay. So we have about 69 countries we covered so far, about 4 million merchants worldwide. We're working with thousands of partners on that. And second is helping the global users to remit payment into China. By working with a global remittance platform such as Wise. They are our customer. So we work with about 30 partners, and we help millions of people to remit money into China. And thirdly, we help the China merchants to collect capital when they sell merchandise overseas.
Great. And Surendra, if you can also introduce Wise and its footprint and vision.
Yeah, thank you. Really cool to be here in Hong Kong. I work for Wise. So Wise is a global fintech company which is now listed on the London Stock Exchange. We've been around for 12 years, and our mission is very simple, which is to make money without borders. We want to make cross-border payments instant, convenient, transparent, and low cost for whether it's a simple consumer wanting to send money for their kids' education, a consumer traveling, or if it's a business wanting to collect payments from different places around the world, wanting to manage their expenses or their entire business on Wise. And then finally, we also partner up with various different financial institutions to use our payment rails, the infrastructure that we've built over the last 12 years, which enables all of this and embed that into their apps. We partner with major banks like Bank Mandiri, ZA Bank in Hong Kong, Shinhan Bank in Korea, and also digital banks such as Monzo and N26 in Europe. And we power their kind of cross-border payments through our infrastructure. We're about 5,000 people in 17 different countries, so still a smallish fintech compared to Tencent. But we feel like we've come a long way in the last 12 years.
Great. So Surendra, could you a little bit put what you've just explained in the context of evolving customer expectations? Like, what are the main trends you've seen, And where has Wise positioned itself in that evolution?
Yeah. So I'm going to start with maybe the founding story of Wise, and that will explain a lot to that question. So, Wise was started by Christo and David. Both of them are from Estonia. They were both in London, and as people in London would do, they were met at a pub, and they were talking to each other. Christo was working in London, getting paid in pounds, and he had a mortgage in euros back home in Estonia. David, who at that point in time was working for Skype, he was the first employee at Skype. He was getting paid in euros and was living in London at the point in time, so he needed money in pounds to spend for his day-to-day expenses. And what they decided was that they were trying to use traditional financial institutions, and what they found was the cost of making these transfers was very high. A recently published World Bank report says that the cost of cross-border payments is still 6.5%. So that problem is still existing around the world. The speed of making that payment was really, really slow. It used to take them more than 2 days to move that money between pounds and euros. It is still a major problem around the world. Today, Wise does about 60% of their payments, 60% of our payments instantly, which means under 20 seconds. Mm-hmm. And our goal is to get this to 100%. But that's still a major problem for customers. And then the third problem was transparency, which is they would send money and not really know how much would they see on the other side, because there would be many different stops of the money along the way, and then you would get a sum of money at the end of on the other side, which you probably don't recognize. And those three pain points of speed, cost, and transparency still remain in the industry. We are only just getting started to solve it.
So, in other words, the transparency is not just transparency of cost, but it's also about where your transfer is. Is that correct?
Yes. So, transparency can mean many things. One, is it very clear and understandable for customers to see how much are they paying for the transfer? Second, is it clear for them to see when is the money going to be on the other side? Like, especially with money, it can cause a lot of anxiety for people that, hey, where is my money, right? Like, it's not, if you're playing with anybody's money, anytime it takes anything more than 20 seconds, people will obviously feel more conscious about it. And then when it comes to transparency around how much am I going to get on the other side, because the fees were so opaque, because there was problems in every step of the way, the end amount that a customer gets could be anything.
Got it. Well, I laugh because I about 2 weeks ago had probably my worst experience, which was I'd sent money to a Hong Kong dollar account overseas, but it was actually a US dollar account, so the receiving bank kicked it back. But the bad thing was it took 10 days to come back, so that was really surprising to me. It was there really fast, actually fast, not in 20 seconds, but in half a day it was there. But coming back took a long time.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I can agree more with these three pain points from the users. I think I probably will just add one more, which is also what we are working on. Try to integrate it in the scenarios. What do I mean? So I think people actually want the financial services to be embedded in their scenarios. For example, in the global in the remittance world, we think, what if the receiving end, when they receive a message of that money is coming, they can directly click to get the money.
Yeah.
Okay, so say if I send $10 to my friend, I will tell him, right? I will tell him, hey, you please expect $10 coming. And when I tell him that's a message, and if that message is associated with a click to collect the payment, that's seamless integration with the scenario. So that's something that we have been working on. So besides the cost, transparency, and the speed, we think if we can embed that into different scenarios to make the experience more seamless, that would be even more helpful to the users.
Great. So now both of you have a view about previous generations of cross-border payment networks, and that there are some main pain points in them. So maybe we can start with you, Forrest. What is actually causing the pain points?
So yeah, I think the traditional system works very well for traditional wholesale payment. So actually, there was a report from G20, a research report. I think it says very well. You know, if you look at the wholesale payment, which is above 100,000 US dollars, the average time landing from a sending bank account to the receiving bank account, not the agent bank account, the receiving bank account, is about in 92% of the time it lands within 1 day, and in about 53% of the time it lands within 1 hour. So for a large amount transaction, it's not too bad.
Okay.
But if we go down to more, small amount for the, individuals, for the small medium businesses, that metrics actually deteriorated. So for 1 day, it's about 73% land within 1 day, and about 43% land within 1 hour. But actually, it's counterintuitive, right? Because you think if the amount is smaller and the payment is more smaller, the user would expect a faster processing. And I think that's really where the traditional, global payment system doesn't serve in the new real-time, small amount, high frequency kind of scenarios really well. And that's something we have been striving to solve and to make it better.
And this is connected to the e-commerce trend.
Right.
Yeah. Do you have a thought on this, Surendra?
Yeah, connecting to what Forrest just said as well. I think what has also happened in the last 10 to 15 years is that there's been a lot of innovation in domestic payment systems around the world. You see it, especially in this part of the world. You have FPS in Hong Kong, you have Pay Now in Singapore, Prompt Pay in Thailand. You can go on and on. Domestic payment systems have moved on to becoming instant and very, very low cost. And cross-border payment systems, because they were relying on correspondent banking services, did not evolve fast enough to be instant. Anytime that you make a cross-border payment through the correspondent banking system, it would hit multiple different hoops, and each of those would add cost. Each of those would would make the payment slower. And what Wise has done is essentially we saw that there are all these domestic payment networks around the world that are evolving very, very rapidly to support the low cost and also small amount transfers very, very efficiently. We built an interoperable layer to connect all of these different payment systems. We today operate in 40 plus different markets, be it a bank account, be it players like Tencent or other payment institutions. We are connected deeply into many such institutions. And what that allows us to offer to our customers is a very seamless way of moving money from, say, Hong Kong to UK. The money can land from their bank account in Hong Kong to the bank account in UK within 20 seconds, because essentially it is 2 domestic transfers. So money coming into a Hong Kong domestic account, and then as soon as we cite the money goes out from a UK account directly into the recipient's bank account. So and then what we've done is kind of taken all of this payment infrastructure and opened it up for anyone to connect to. And that's what we have 70 plus partners around the world now which have embedded this payment infrastructure into their systems so that their customers now have access to fairly instant and very low cost cross-border payment.
Great.
Yeah, I think Surendra hit a very important point. Indeed, I think it's actually good news for us that all the regional fast payment networks has already been very prosperous. FPS in Hong Kong, Prompt Pay in Thailand, PIX in Brazil, et cetera. But now it's really, the next step is really institutions need to work with each other to make that cross-border payment as smooth as possible. And I believe this is not a job of one institution or even one central bank, okay, because intrinsically it is a multiple network, multiple financial institutions, multiple jurisdictions need to work with each other. So it needs an open ecosystem, needs an open platform, open protocol. But as long as we have the vision and we have the intention to work closely with each other, we work one by one. We connect two first, then third and fourth. We work in specific scenarios. Gradually, that international high-frequency, low-cost, real-time payment network will start to be interwoven.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, the future that all of us are working towards.
Thank you. Yes, both of you had raised the importance of these faster payment systems and trying to connect them. And within the BIS Innovation Hub, in the Singapore Center, we do have a project called Nexus that seeks to do this. So as we know, there is, as Eddie just announced, there is a connectivity between Hong Kong and Thailand. Similarly, Singapore has connectivity between Singapore and Thailand and also Singapore and India. So the Singapore BIS Innovation Hub is seeking to work on a more broader approach or a more global approach, so to say, to connecting these faster payment systems. Yes, so maybe if you could, from your perspective, within that context, if you had many of these, let's say, connected, could you give a vision of how it would improve things for you and consequently for your customers?
So our mission, I think, has remained very consistent. Like we want to kind of, what we look at day in and day out is how do we reduce the cost of making these payments and the speed of making these payments and improve the speed. Today, our average cost for customers is about 0.67%, which if anybody had said that like 12 years ago when we started, it was probably unthinkable. The average cost around the world, as I said before, is still 6.5%. So the way we kind of go about doing this is by connecting directly to the payment infrastructures of each and every country that we operate in. We have directly connected to FPS in the UK, SEPA in Europe, FAST in Singapore, PIX in Brazil, NPP in Australia, and so on and so on. And what we try to do, what this enables us to do is that we control a lot more of the experience for our customers, and then we can also pass back the savings that we are creating because connecting directly. And then we can offer payments which are instant because we can process a lot of the things within a few seconds. Like when a payment comes through, we've built technology that can process a lot of things within a few seconds of checking the payment. Where is this coming from? We run a whole range of checks around frauds and security of the funds, and then passing them on to the next leg of the payouts to the recipient's bank account or any other account for that matter. So I think ultimately for us to get better at dropping this price and increasing the speed, we need to be connecting more and more to these payment systems as they come up around the world. Even in places where these payment systems don't exist, our hope, like for example in the US, there is still no instant payment network. Our hope is that at some point with FedNow or RTP, those things will be resolved. But I think at least in this part of the world, we've seen, because of the regulators being so progressive about making domestic payments instant and low cost, we've seen a very revolutionary change for cross-border payments as well that we can now pass along to our customers.
Yes, actually in the last few days this topic is coming out a lot from visitors, is that really a lot is going on in this region. So it's good to hear when people come and they say that. It's always great to hear. So Forrest, did you want to add some thoughts about this and maybe share some other ideas that Tencent works towards?
Yeah, so for our global payment business, we have a strategy called a 1+1+1. The first one is actually our domestic payment network and the WeChat ecosystem in general, because we're connecting to over 1 billion users and less than 100 million merchants in China. So we are very willing to open up our network to our partners globally to make the global payment, cross-border payment as smooth as possible. So that's the first one. And the second one is actually the global financial institutions that were very willing and to work with, such as Wise, such as the global banks, car schemes, etc. So, because as I mentioned, that grand vision is not something that can be completed by one single financial institution. It has to be collaboration among all the major players. So that's the second one. And the third one is actually the scenarios, what we call scenarios. So for example, e-commerce platform is a very important kind of partner that we need to work with. So we work with e-commerce partners to help their merchants, after they collect the payment from customers, remit the payment into China to pay for their supply chain. Mm-hmm. By working into the scenarios with financial institutions, that payment services can be compliant, low cost, high efficient, but at the same time, the user experience, not only from the individual standpoint, but from the merchant standpoint, can be enhanced because they don't need to open another, another financial scenario to work on their problem. They can just work their problem within the scenario, and that's sort of the 1 + 1 + 1. Our ecosystems plus the financial institutions globally, plus the scenario platforms that we can work with each other.
That's great. So you both make this sound so easy. We ourselves are working on another project, which is the Enbridge project, and there will be a panel this afternoon. But I don't find it so easy.
Yeah, but actually, I really appreciate and I really like the Enbridge project. And actually, we have a pilot project on Enbridge as well. I think this is actually very important because central banks, different central banks, if they can collaborate with each other to create a common platform enabling the real-time networks of the regions to have that landing point among each other, I think that's great because a private sector is very hard to do that. I think it has to be a collaboration between public sector and the private sector. And we really want to ride on the Enbridge initiative and try to offer more scenarios and to enhance the architecture and technology behind, so as to make the flow become more efficient and smooth.
That's great, thank you. So maybe Surendra, to finish with you as well, you had mentioned a recent collaboration with Swift. Could you speak more about that?
So I definitely agree with Forrest that a lot of the problems for cross-border payments are to be solved with a deeper collaboration. And that's why we've recently announced our partnership with Swift. What that enables financial institutions around the world to do, which have been using Swift for quite some time, is to basically change one number and suddenly move their payments to the next generation of payment infrastructure created by Wise. This will then truly enable all of these banks and other financial institutions around the world to support or to offer this next generation of instant, low-cost cross-border payments to their customers. Our goal is that how do we make it super simple for any traditional institution to switch to this payment infrastructure that we've built, because traditionally we've seen that's where the biggest problem for them lies, that it is not very easy for a traditional institution to recreate what we have done. So what we did was we partnered with Swift and created a very simple correspondent banking alternative over Swift to power this for banks, which quite a few number of banks now around the world are starting to use. And that makes the integration for them as simple as a few weeks, if not a few days. And the second thing I think it also allows us to do is bring transparency to a lot more customers. Like Swift has this very cool thing called Swift GPI, which allows customers to see where their transfers are and where exactly their money is. This allows us to also, again, bring this power of transparency to millions and millions of more customers around the world. I think we are all consumers of cross-border payments, and I think as consumers we do deserve a solution which is inherently transparent so that you're clear how much you're paying, how quick would the transfer be, and how much is the recipient going to get. And I think, again, with this deep collaboration, we can enable this for a lot more customers.
Thank you. So, so in the transparency, we discussed as well the FX costs. Are they actually part of the total number?
So our, the way we do this is very, very simple, which is the rate you get should be the rate that you see on Google. It should be the mid-market rate, which is very easily available for you to see anywhere on the internet.
Okay.
And then every institution has to charge a fee, which is fair, but you should not be hiding it in the FX, which is where the lack of transparency comes about in FX generally. There are lots and lots of people, lots and lots of companies around the world that would kind of advertise it as zero commission, but reality is that a lot of the FX fee is hidden in the markup of the exchange rate. And that's what we are asking for, that, hey, if you want to charge a fee, that is totally fine. But you, as a consumer, anytime you buy a service, the service provider should be telling you what is fee and what is the cost, or what is the real, what is the real fee of making this payment, right? So that's what I mean, like when I say like FX transparency, like how do we actually publish this out to more and more customers that, hey, here's the real mid-market rate of this transfer.
It's like the Uber app where you can see the price of the different cars.
Exactly.
Okay, great. That brings us right to the end of our discussion here. So thank you very much for listening and thank you very much for participating. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.